Good afternoon, everyone. I should say good evening, everyone. Welcome to the licensing subcommittee today. Just going to please also ensure that your mics are muted when you're not speaking. When you are speaking, please be succinct and do not exceed your allocated time frame. If referring to any written submissions, please refer to the specific page number in the agenda pack. Any new evidence can only be submitted at the discretion of the chair and the agreement of all parties. If you are having technical difficulties, please use the chat function to alert the meeting or dial in using the details in the invitation. Please don't use that chat function for putting formal questions to the subcommittee, and any persistent disruptive behavior will result in removal from the meeting. Once the application has been considered, any remaining parties will be asked to log out of the hearing, so please do so promptly so that our councillors have the opportunity to deliberate and make a decision. Each party will be notified of the decision as soon as possible. However, if you contact licensing service the following day, you will be given a skeleton decision. Thank you very much, councillors. If you would like to elect a chair.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Mahima.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Councillor Patrick. So let's just start with apologies, I'm on the computer screen today. So we have apologies from Councillor Fajana Thomas and Councillor Root, and Councillor Patrick is no, neither do I. And then agenda item Okay.
I think if David is,
Okay.
I think if David is here, yeah.
To agenda item 6, which is a substantive item. Circulated to all parties, and it's also available on the website. Of this year. So I will call on the principal licensing officer to outline the report, and you have up to 5 minutes. And I'm going to be keeping time today, so I will give you everybody a 30-second time check when you're about to finish. If you'd like to go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the item we are going to consider for this evening is for a new premises license received under the Licensing Act 2003 under Section 17 for the Kingsland, 267 Kingsland Road. The application is seeking for regulated entertainment and to authorize supply of alcohol for consumption on the premises from 12 to 2300 Sunday to Wednesday, and from 12 to 2 a.m. Thursday to Saturday, and late night refreshment from 2300 to 2 a.m. Thursday to Saturday, as stated within the report. Environmental Enforcement has withdrawn the representation based on agreed conditions, which is listed within the report. Police have also withdrawn the representation based on one agreed condition with the SIDO supervisor, as well as the removal of non-standard hours. Representation still remains from licensing and other person. As Councillor said, we have received additional information and these documents has been circulated. I have nothing else to add. Thank you, Chair.
Great, thank you. I will now invite the applicant and applicant solicitor, David Dabbs, to make your submission, and you have 5 minutes. So when you're ready, I'll start the clock.
Thank you. Do I address you as chair?
Chair is fine, yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
So thank you, Chair. The application you've received, and I understand you've read that, so there's no point me taking you through something you've already read. I'm sure Councillor Padrick will just nod if she's read the application. Thank you. So we've agreed an additional condition with the police service about SIA, which I think you've also got. I think it's quite a robust application with quite robust conditions. The police are the main lead on crime and disorder, and they raise no objection. The Environmental Health Service are your main advisor in relation to noise pollution and environment, and they raise no objection. You know that we have undertaken a series of temporary events for multiple days and times, which is actually set out page 15 of your agenda. So sorry for the additional papers. It looks like it was already there. But I thought it was nevertheless necessary for you to see the different times and days. And we've had no complaint relating to any of those activities based on the information before me. I thought it was helpful to provide a few photographs of inside the premises. It's very well maintained. It is an established public house. It had a very checkered past by previous ownerships historically, nothing to do with us. There was quite a few objections last year when we applied because I think the unknown, but obviously, and there were a few residents who are immediately around that they no longer have objected. I think it's well refurbished. The way that we're operating has not raised any objections with the immediate vicinity or residents. We have had a number of residents from Fletcher House. I don't know the street number or name, but they're from the same building or block. They are not directly behind us. There's a building between them and us, and also you can't access Fletcher House or the frontage of that dwelling building from Wilmer Gardens at all. There's no access. You have to go all the way around. So there's no way of our customers dispersing and coming to them or near them. So we're satisfied that certainly people outside smoking or people dispersing will not have any effect on these 4 residents, or it might be that there's a duplication. A couple of them are very similar, so it might be the same. So it might be the same individuals living within the same dwelling. I don't know, but in any event, it is fair to say that given the distance and the buildings between them and us and no access, that they will not be disturbed by the activities that we're undertaking. I ask that the licence be granted as applied for.
Thank you very much. Just stop that. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Patrick, did you have anything you wish to ask clarification on?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay. Well, I've got some questions about location of things like smoking areas, but we'll come to that in the additional kind of questioning, if that's all right with you. So I'll move on to the responsible authority. I think David Tewett is going to speak, and you also have up to 5 minutes when you are ready.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep this very brief, just to allow us to get to discussion phase. So the representation submitted on behalf of the licensing authority is at Appendix B3 in today's agenda. So we highlighted that the application seeks to extend hours for the licensable activity which is beyond the hours set out within LP3, which is the licensing policy around core hours of activity. So we're just a bit concerned about possible public nuisance as a result of this additional activity. The premises, of course, already does have a license, so it's a variation application effectively. Conditions of the existing license were agreed following a consent order. So there's a previous license application, appeal against the decision, and then that was settled via consent. And the decision that the subcommittee made at the time on the 3rd of March 2022 was appended to this representation. So that just highlights some concern about the potential for the premises to undermine the licensing objectives and impact on local residents in a negative manner, which we still do have some concerns about. You heard in the opening submission that there was a bit of a checkered past at this particular site. Should stress that it wasn't the applicant or the license holder that operated the site at the time. So it's very important to point that out. But it does, that past does to a certain extent lead to some of the concerns that we have. In preparing this representation, we did just suggest whether the applicant would consider reducing the hours to fit with the core hours policy, but as you've heard, that the applicant does want to continue to seek the hours as applied for. And maybe one thing we could explore then is whether a last entry condition is attached to the license if you're minded to grant. And this is again due to the history of the premises, its location, and the close proximity to residential premises. So I'll leave it there for now, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Patrick, any questions from you? I've just got a couple of quick ones, David. Oh, sorry, go ahead, chat.
I was going to say, I've got questions like you about the smoking, and also later on when we get discussion phase about the last entry to the premises, but Mr. Dabbs can pick them up perhaps. Yeah, sorry, you go ahead and ask your questions.
I was just going to ask, what time did you, what was your preferred close time with the licensing authorities that you had proposed before this session, before this meeting, in your discussions?
Well, our preference was for the license, if you're minded to grant, for it to be granted in accordance with the core hours policy within the council's policy, but clearly the applicant is seeking hours beyond that. So if anything granted is nearer to the core hours, that would, of course, be less of a concern for us. But I'm sure Mr. Dadds will be arguing to go much later than that. So no doubt we'll get to that in the discussion phase.
Okay. And just as for my own understanding, how would a last entry, how would that operate? Would that be that you'd close a certain period of time before drinking up time or before closing time?
A last entry policy, or condition, what we meant by that is for what you might see is, say, the last hour, for example, of operation, no new entries at that point.
I see.
So beyond that point, it's just dispersal. It's just people leaving effectively. Obviously, it would still allow for smokers to temporarily leave and then re-enter, but generally the last entry is for new entries.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Patrick?
Sorry, it takes me a minute to move the mouse. No, I don't. No, I don't have any questions.
Okay,
I think that was helpful for Mr. Truitt.
thank you very much. Oh, sorry, that was your timer. It's worth noting that the environmental enforcement team have withdrawn their representation, and so have the police. And so we don't have other persons present. Somebody has raised their hand. Yes, go ahead.
It's David Dadd. Sorry, I don't know. I've got someone here called Natalie Williams. I don't know that individual.
She's a member of council staff.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So thank you, Chair. I didn't know, so I thought I'd just flag it up just in case.
Oh, sorry, no, that's my mistake. I should have actually done introductions. I apologise.
No worries. Thank you. So when you're ready, I'd like to comment, if possible.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Fine. Okay. So, although we don't have the four other persons here, we just should remind ourselves, for the benefit of people watching, that we're looking at upholding the licensing objectives, which are prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. So I'd suggest that we go to the discussion, and I will allow not more than 15 minutes. We may not even need that, given that we don't have quite everybody here. But for any further questions, so let me just start with Councillor Patrick first, if you wanted to raise a question questions you had to either.
Yes, yeah. I am concerned that this application is for beyond our 4 hours, and that we have had representations from residents about noise and antisocial behaviour. I'm just wondering, I'm sure Mr. Dads will say that he's been instructed to ask for the full hours as per the application, but I'd be happy if the hours were the core hours for this premises, or at least there was if we did grant above core hours, there was at least a cut-off where people couldn't enter the premises after core hours.
Would you like to come back?
Also, we need to know where the smokers are going to be. I gather it's 10 smokers, but that bit of the payment's quite small.
Mr. Dads, would you like to come back?
Yes. Would you allow me just to come back generally on a couple of points that have been raised during Mr. Truitt's representation as well?
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you. So, firstly, and Councillor Patrick, I certainly don't want to be disrespectful or anything like that. It's not about whether you're happy with granting. We're looking at the licensing objectives, and there is a presumption to grant. So there's no cumulative impact policy here. So the presumption is to grant unless others satisfy you that the licensing objectives will be undermined. And in relation to the residents, whilst you'll have regard to the representations made, you'll have regard to what I've said, that the they're a block and so away. Customers can't go past their house. There's been no historic or any history of complaint by to them to environmental health during our tens or operation. And you've heard my submissions that we say that they cannot be impacted or affected by our operation given the distance and the inability for people to pass or repass their house. In relation to environmental health on public nuisance, they've raised no objections at all. And under the statutory guidance, which you'll have regard to, it says at 9.12, for example, the police should usually therefore be the licensing authority's main source of advice on matters relating to crime and disorder. And the police having the expertise and not objecting, they have in effect are satisfied that the licensing objectives will be met. And following the case law of following the case law of Daniel Thwaite, you're to place weight on that. According, that's evidence that supports the applicant. In relation to East Gwent case, that's where representations are made by, say, makers of the statements that don't appear. So where the residents don't appear, you'll have regard to it. But what weight you attach is a matter for you. But ordinarily, you'll attach little or no weight to a maker of a statement that's not present. So, but even more so, given the representations I've made, and you can see the plan, and there's no objection from environmental health, I don't know how the individuals in Fletcher House will be impacted given the submissions I've already made. In relation to environment licensing, it's a policy objection. You can't refuse based on policy. If it was a cumulative impact, you might be able to, but you have regard to policy, but you have to have regards to environmental health, the police, and the representations I made. David Chewett, whilst he's a professional, he is a professional officer, he's not an environmental health officer. And your professional officers, it actually says here in that guidance that you'll have particular regard to the expertise or the interests of those particular responsible authorities when commenting on these reviews. And so environmental health have not objected, and that should weigh very heavily on you. David Chewett has not provided any evidence of any noise, nuisance or complaints. He's not from the Environmental Health Department. And Mr. Chewett, I don't mean to be disrespectful in any way. I just make those observations. And historic complaints relating to a license that was 5 a.m. We're going to 2 a.m. There are a number of premises in the vicinity, not cumulative impact, but within the vicinity that are operating at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., etc., without causing any concern. And there's a premises only just around the corner which we're linked to in some way that's got.
Mr. Dads, if I could stop you, sorry, you've had 5 minutes on that.
Could I,
more questions in.
thank you. Could I just address very briefly the smoking area and the last entry?
Okay, but please be mindful of time because we are going to stick to 15 minutes for this.
Oh, well, as I'm the only person here, I think it would.
I have some questions as well. That's all.
Okay,
Tell me
fine.
what you say.
So I just work on those two things. So firstly, in relation to smoking, it's on the left-hand side. It's a maximum of 10. It's been used for us before in the last year. We've had no complaints. It works very well. We'll manage it, and it's no more than 10 smokers at any one time. In relation to last entry, the police have not asked for that. I don't see the necessity of it. But if you believe that there is evidence to support the need for that condition, then normally you would say that no, last entry an hour before. So, and you say an hour before, so that if we apply for a 10 later on, it'll be an hour before closing. So it moves with the 10. But I don't see any evidence to support this. It's not an cumulative impact. There's no evidence of migration. People come to premises at different times or join people because they're running late. So I think that's the answers to those two questions.
Okay. Councillor Patrick, anything else? I just wanted to follow up on something, if not.
I can't quite see Councillor Patrick. I don't know if the camera's moved, does it?
Sorry,
There you go.
you don't really want to see me.
All right.
I am here and listening.
David Tewett, did you have anything to add to that, or?
Not really, Chair. As you've heard from Mr. Dadds, the premises isn't in a community of impact policy, so it doesn't have that presumption, if you like, to refuse. What I would say about core hours policy, it isn't a policy which is strictly applied. What that does seek to request really from applicants is that they just assess the area in their application. So when they're preparing their operating schedule, they've assessed what impacts there could be as a result of that their operation. So that's why we raise it. Just some concerns, because there are residential premises close by to this particular site, and it is right just to highlight that the premises, when it did operate previously under previous operation, and it was of quite significant concern to us in licensing, our colleagues in police and environmental protection. It was licensed at that time to 5 a.m. I think at weekends or maybe every day. So it's quite different what's being sought in this application.
Okay. Mr. Dadds, you said that so 2 of the 4 other persons raised the location of the smoking area. So you said that it's to the left-hand side. They said that they were unclear where it was. So you clarified that, is that correct?
Yeah, would you mind saying that again? I couldn't quite hear. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. So 2 of the 4 other persons in their statements, they had questions about the smoking area that Councillor Patrick has mentioned, but where it was a concern for them. They said they weren't clear where it was going to be.
Yes. So I've got it as it's left to the front door, maximum 10, and it's cordoned off with a barrier, and we manage it. And we've been doing that without any cause for complaint. And the environment.
And does that obstruct the public highway, or?
Well, there'll be people on the public highway. Oh no, it doesn't. I'm being told it doesn't. Let me just take the instruction on that so it's absolutely clear. One moment, please. Sorry, it is, as I describe it, it's on the left-hand side, where we manage
on the corner of the street,
on the main street, and there's about 2 meters left space to pass and repass, so we're not obstructing the highway, and we manage that area, and people are not allowed to go into Phillip Street to smoke there, where there may be some more residential, so we manage that well.
Okay, I see. All right. And then one of the other things that was mentioned, it'd be really good to have a bit of clarification, and perhaps your thoughts as well, David, if you're aware of this. So there's mention of the DPS in the past, or the DPS being linked to other premises, and then I don't know if it's from the previous application, which was rejected. Terms breached, am I speaking? Yes.
Where's that? Sorry.
Suba, can you help me out?
No, that's not an issue in this case. It's been granted since, and this premises, the DPS is not linked to another premises. It's
okay, right. No, that's what I wanted to know. Okay.
Yeah, no, and those other premises have been granted licenses subsequently without issue. So,
but to all intents and purposes, it's different management and different people.
There's different. It's a different company structure, different DPS, and the suggestion of any impropriety or breaches is not
it's not related to this application. Okay.
And I think in fairness, the police or environmental health would have raised it if they want to, and
Yeah.
David can raise it if he wishes to, but I don't believe it's an issue here.
Okay, no, I'm just going by what I have read, just to clarify those things.
Thank you.
And David, did you have anything you wanted to ask, add at this point before I bring this bit to a close?
No, nothing from me, Chair.
Okay. So that we set that. That takes us to the concluding remarks from you. If there's anything in addition, rather than repeating, you can.
Well, it's going to be repeating. It's going to be repeating because it is closing remarks. So, but if you allow me, how many minutes do I have?
5, up to 5.
Well, I won't use that much. So I'll be. Councillors, look, it's about the licensing objectives. I think this application, very robustly written, demonstrates that we can promote the licensing objectives. We are confident of that. So are the police, so are the environmental health. And the residents that have raised objections that aren't here, nevertheless, you'll take regard to them, but you'll have to attach the appropriate weight given the case law. And I've already demonstrated there are some distance away. There's no record of any complaints by residents while we've been operating. And the way we will operate, we say we will promote the licensing objectives. It's not an accumulative impact area. The guidance is very clear that the roles of responsible authorities, and you will take the lead of the main source of advice on crime disorder of the police, on public nuisance, the environmental health team. Neither of those raise objections. We've had TENs without any issues. TENs actually have been for much greater time, 4, 5 o'clock, etc., without complaint. I would respectfully ask that this application is granted in accordance with its robust conditions and conditions agreed with environmental health and the police. There's no other evidence from licensing that can evidence any undermining, and on that basis, we ask that it's granted. Thank you.
Okay. David, anything from you?
Nothing really further to add, Chair. Acknowledge that the other responsible authorities have withdrawn or didn't make reps. Still do have those concerns about just the close proximity to residential premises, but acknowledge that, as I say, other responsible authorities haven't made representations.
Okay. Wonderful. And then, so we just move to final points of clarification from either me or Councillor Patrick. So, when just so we, you would be happy in principle for a last entry kind of condition. I know that there.
Me, Claire.
No, sorry,
Mr.
Mr.
Dabbs.
Tuitt, apologies. Yeah, Mr. Dabbs.
Yes. If you remind you to grant, obviously, I don't believe it's necessary, but if you think it's necessary, then what you would do is I'd ask you to draft it in a way that says no last entry 1 hour before the close. I'd encourage you not to do that because I don't think there's any evidence for that. But if you do it, then I ask at least it's done in that way. So if we apply for TENs, it moves with us applying for TENs without getting into a dance about it. So that's it really. If that, but one thing I will just 60 seconds on it is that remember the police and the environmental health did object, but we came to an agreed position. So it's not that they didn't, they did. They've overcome those concerns. They are now satisfied, both of them, that we will promote the licensing objectives, and neither of them asked for a last entry condition.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you all for your. Oh yes, Amanda.
Sorry, Chair, can I just clarify? I mean, I don't know if Mr. Tuitt has already said it, but could you just clarify again, following the representation made by the applicant's representative, is he still seeking the last entry condition?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, in the representation, it was suggested. Again, just with the nature of the local area, etc. But it is something for, if members are minded to grant, it's something we'd like them to consider.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so thank you for attending, Mr. Dads.
Thank you for having me.
Pardon?
Thank you for having me. Thank you very
No
much.
problem.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Goodbye, Mr. Dad.
Bye, Councillor Patrick.
For the benefit of those watching this, we will have a decision on that within 5 working days, and that will be communicated and will be uploaded to the website. So that takes us to agenda item 7, temporary event notices, and we don't have any 10s for consideration. And so there being no further business, I consider the meeting closed. So can we stop the live stream, please?